Writing, the longer I've been a writer, the more I've realized that it shares more in common with things like baseball than I thought it did. A baseball player can read all about the philosophy of the baseball, of how to hit a ball, right? Can read all about that, knows what muscles he has to train to get better at that, but in the moment he's not thinking about a lot of that. In the moment he's swinging and it connects, and his instincts make him do that. Writing is actually a lot more like that than you think. The point of practicing, one of the points of practicing is to train yourself to be able to get into that zone, to learn instinctively what's working and what's not working. And this is going to sound annoying to you because it's not sort of stuff I can teach. I can teach all the stuff about what muscles to work and different things like that, and I can give you lots of cool tools. But at the end of the day, you've got to figure out how to get into that kind of that moment where it's all clicking for you and working in ways you don't even know why. Where your unconscious is working, everything is bringing the story together, and you've got to learn to do that. And that is why the practice is so important. Another metaphor I like to use, and this works very well, if you were to go and listen to two pianists playing in a concert hall, and one had been practicing the piano for 2 years, and one had been practicing for 20 years, and we throw out the occasional really odd super savant, you would be able to tell very quickly which was which. The person who's been going for 2 years is probably still capable. They're not doing awful stuff. But you will listen, you can be like, all right, this is the person who's been doing this for 2 years, this is the maestro. Readers and editors in specific can read a page and have that same experience. They will know. They will know just by reading which is which is why editors can reject a book so quickly a lot of the times. And what you're doing in this class being a writer is you're not learning to write the perfect novel. You are learning to become a writer, which is kind of a performance art, that when you sit down to type, you perform well, and those chapters come across well, and then you have this piece of fiction that you can work with and make better and take and get to this level that when someone sits down to read it, it has an emotional and powerful impact on them while they're reading, and they want to keep reading. They may not know why, but they want to keep reading, and that's what you're shooting for. That's what you're learning to do, okay? So, you are going to build good habits. Part of the requirement for the word count limit in this class, the 30,000 words that we're going to have you do, is that's going to make you write every week. You can't do 30,000 words in 1 week. I can't do 30,000. I could do 30,000 words. Okay. I can do 30,000 in 1 week. I get to do this full time though. I've never done 50,000 in 1 week, which is why that's. But 30,000 is a fairly regular week for me. But you're probably not going to be doing that. Hopefully, you're going to be looking at doing 2,000 to 4,000 words a week would be my goal for you in this class. And if you're doing that across the 14 weeks, you will be done. You'll be way done. Well, we don't really have 14 weeks left, right? So if we look at it as 10 weeks, you'll still be able to get there. So 3,000 words a week. Set your goal for 3,000 words a week. Find a writing habit that works for you. Don't fall behind, okay? Because if you fall behind and you do it all in the last month, you're really kind of undermining the whole point of doing this, right? Maybe you'll find out you're a binge writer and that's good for you, but try it this way. And try to do your 3,000 words a week. You're going to submit to your writing group 1,000 words of it. That does mean you're not going to submit your whole story to your writing group, but it's okay. You don't have to submit the words you wrote that week. Like if you the first week write 3,000 words, that's 3 weeks of submissions to your writing group. Or if you write 3,000 words and you submit that and you realize this just isn't working, I'm going to jump to another viewpoint, you can go ahead and submit that 1,000 words from that viewpoint or things like that. Use the writing group, and we'll talk later today before we split about how to use a writing group and why writing groups are effective and how they can ruin your story. But learn good habits, all right? This is goal number 1, learn good habits. Number 2 is, another star, I like stars, is learn your writing style. I should probably write these better now that I'm being filmed and things, but Learn your style. Okay. Learn your style. There are as many ways to write a good book as there are writers. And what's a good book for me may not be a good book for you. Sometimes you will pick up books in the bookstores that are selling well. You will look at this and say, this is utter crap. Why was this published? Why are people reading this? That's not a book for you. It's okay. It's okay for books not to be for everybody. In fact, some of the things you write won't be for your writing group. We're going to try and learn to give good criticism even on something that is not necessarily targeted right at us. That's okay. Some of the things I'll tell you to try out in this class will not work for you. For instance, if you are really a binge writer, then this whole slow and steady thing may not be the way that you approach a book, and it may just be something you try for this semester and you say, no, I was having more success taking the summers and writing a book during the summers and binging on it, and then editing and doing writing groups with it the other 8 months of the year. That's okay. But the goal is for you to try these things out, to learn your writing style, to figure it out. A lot of the stuff that writers will give you as advice is actually advice of something to try out, not advice of something to do. A good example of this, one I usually like to use in the first week of my class, is the difference between the gardeners and the architects. How many have heard me talk about this before? A few of you have, because you take the class too often or you watch things, but that's okay. So, writers tend to fall on a continuum between what George R. R. Martin likes to call the gardener and the architect. I used to use the phrases discovery writer, this is another good one, and outliner. I don't like discovery and outliner as much as I once did, because any writing process there's going to be discovery, and when you're outlining, sometimes it dredges up images from your childhood at high school, which may not have been that long ago for some of you. I feel older every time I teach this. But, it's not like it's heading A, subparagraph B, bullet point 3, word. I mean, that's not what we talk about when we talk about an outliner. An outliner is really a planner, and a discovery writer is a seat of the pantser, as one of my friends likes to call it. And writers tend to fall on this continuum somewhere. You should try out both. Both methods are good. A discovery writer is Stephen King is a discovery writer. Stephen King says for him to start a book, he needs interesting characters in an interesting situation, and then he writes and sees where it goes. That's fun for him. That's productive for him. Whereas strict outliners, such as Kevin J. Anderson, Kevin creates a very detailed outline of a paragraph-by-paragraph explanation where each paragraph is basically a chapter for himself and for the publisher, and then he takes that paragraph and he reads it again and he writes the chapter according to what that paragraph says to do. He is a very strict outliner. He gets everything down on the page before he even starts writing the book. He knows exactly where things are going. You are probably in between here somewhere, and beyond that, in a given book, you will slide back and forth depending on how that book is going and what works for you with that specific book. And in this class, one of your goals should be all these things I talk about, saying, okay, I'm going to try discovery writing. Discovery writing, and I'm going to write a scene with no planning at all. I'm just going to go into it, the characters, here's the situation, let's see what happens to them. And see if that creates fiction that you enjoy, that you had a good experience doing it, that you're proud of when you're done, and it helps you continue forward. We're all looking for stuff that helps you continue forward. Next time, you will try outlining. You'll say, okay, what's going to happen in this chapter? What's our kind of climax of the chapter? What's our rising and falling action of the scene? What are the conflicts we're addressing, and how is this part of our greater outline? How are we moving toward, what's our goal for the book, and how are we moving toward it in this specific chapter? And you'll write that chapter with everything planned out ahead of time, and you'll see if that works for you. Try different things. Find out where you are. I am actually right around here on this for almost all of my books. What this means for me is I tend to do a lot of outlining for my world building. I like a really spectacular setting that's very interesting. I like to have all these things seated in it. And I like to have a pretty good plot outline before I start. So I want to know where I'm going. If I don't know where I'm going in a story, usually the story turns out poorly for me. I've got to have a goal in mind. I've got to have something to shoot for. And so I will build myself an outline, and we'll have an entire lecture on how I build an outline, so don't worry about that. But I will build myself an outline, and I will work from it, but I discover write my characters. I will cast different personalities in this role. I will write a few scenes, and I won't know my characters until I write them. And after I know who they are, I may have to go back and revise my outline. I may write along for a while and say, the person this character is developing into won't do what's in the outline. I either need to pull that character out and try something else there, or I need to revise the outline depending on what I think is going to make a better story. And that's how I build a novel. Dan Wells is more over here. He's not a huge, he's a pretty big discovery writer, but he has found that having a last chapter in mind before he starts discovery writing fixes so many problems with his books. And that inched him, like just a step over this way, where now he likes to never start a book without at least having in his mind or even a rough draft written of the last chapter. And then he can discovery write his way there, but if he knows where he's going, it'll be better. These are just things that you'll become aware of as you practice. You'll learn that discovery writers tend to have weak endings but strong characters. And you'll learn that outlining tends to create really explosive plots, but sometimes characters that feel wooden, that they're just following steps along a path that's been set out for them. And you'll try maybe to find some balance in between that'll help you do the best of both worlds. I do have a friend, Kaylin, who is one of the most discovery writers I know. And what she will do is her first draft is her outline. She will write beginning to end a first draft without any planning. Then she will sit down and say, okay, I will use this to make my outline, and I'll write the book over from scratch, starting on page 1, now knowing all the important beats of the book ahead of time and knowing where I'm going. Create some fantastic books for a discovery writer where normally she has trouble with plotting and things like that. This helps out. So, you'll find different processes to work on to help you become a better writer. So, you're going to learn your style. Hopefully. I'm going to throw a lot of tools at you, and you're going to practice using them. All right?
You lost your mind.
What's that? Oh, I lost my mic. Woo. Thank you. Thank you very much. What else are we going to do in this class? We are going to practice with writing groups. This one gives me a star. Writing groups. It's important, but it's not the most important thing in the class. I like the writing groups. It makes my workload for a given week more manageable. It allows me to meet with you guys one-on-one. In some courses that I've done, I did as a student, we have these big 15 or 20 person, sessions where you submit a story and everyone talks about it. And I felt like those really ground into a useless place very quickly. Because, a few people would say the important things, and then everyone else would just start picking apart sentences or whatnot. So I like splitting into smaller writing groups. What numbers did you write, or your writing groups? How many people are in them?
4 or 5.
There are 4 or 5. So we have 6 writing groups. Is that right? That's a good number. So I can sit in your writing group with you, 4 or 5 of you, and I will meet with your writing group twice. In that case, and if I don't get to you twice because of the being on tour, I'll have to look at the numbers. I may want to take one of those writing groups and break it apart and make us into 5 writing groups instead, just so I can make sure I can get to each of you twice. With the tour coming up next month, things are going to be just a tad tight for me. All of my March and April's open, but February is going to be pretty tight. So we'll look at that at the break, and we might take one group and break it apart and put one person of each into the other groups. Yeah.
Do writing groups meet today?
We'll talk about that, yeah.
Okay.
My goal is to have you meet today, but I don't expect you to have submitted much, if anything at all. Really, today is just we're going to make sure that everything's working and whatnot. So, writing groups. Let's talk about writing groups. I promised you I would, and now is the time. So, writing group. We may go extra long on the lecture today because I skipped the lecture last week. And I want you guys to get your money's worth, or in many cases your parents' money's worth, or in other cases the government's money's worth. Writing groups. A good writing group is a wonderful thing for a lot of writers, and a terrible thing for some writers, even a good one. A bad writing group is a bad thing for all writers. So let's talk about how to do it well. The idea is for you to learn how to give and receive criticism in a way that improves your writing, because having a good support structure can really help you keep these good habits. Some of you may have found, in taking creative writing classes already, that submitting stuff to a creative writing class every week keeps you writing and gives you a deadline, and that's good for some writers. Other times when you don't have the class, you don't have that impulse to submit. If you have a writing group that you have formed, you don't have to keep the one in this class, but if you can practice in this class and learn how to make one, then you have a deadline every week. You have a piece to submit, and you'd better get it done, otherwise everyone's going to make fun of you. Which was my solemn duty in the writing group, since I was never late. Well, I was always late, but I always had something. So I have found that my writing group has helped me and elevated me as a writer all through my career. It helps me find some of the things in the writing that I need to work on, but it also has given me that support structure. It's no coincidence that 3 of the members of my writing group, the founding members of my writing group, are professional writers. That happens. J.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were in a writing group together. When a writing group really takes off, they lift each other up, give each other opportunities, and we start finding more success because you get to see people being successful. My writing group includes Dan Wells. Dan Wells and I took this class along with a woman named Kaylin Zobel, who are the 3 writers in that class, and Peter, who became a professional editor at Tokyo Pop editing manga before I hired him away to make him my assistant. So I know there's 4 people in that writing group who became professionals in science fiction and fantasy in their chosen field. Peter always wanted to be an editor. So of that writing group that we started, there were about 6 of us in the early years of the writing group. 2 of them are computer dudes. You gotta accept that they're computer dudes. That they're our buddies. We still let them sit in the writing group, but but
They write code.
They write code, exactly. They write code, and they're actually good friends. We find that that good critiquers whose writing you don't have to read can be actually a very valuable thing in a writing group, because a good writing group is going to have a number of submissions every week. Usually we find that 2 or 3, in this class you'll have 5, but usually we find 2 or 3 is ideal. And so having a writing group of 8 members where 2 or 3 of you submit significant chunks every other week, and then the rest of them are just really insightful readers, makes for a stronger writing group than only writers. That's what I've found. Gives you a little more bang for your proverbial buck by having some good readers there. And so perhaps some of you have spouses that you find have a good eye for reading. You can stick them in the writing group and take advantage of them. Hi, bye-bye. Hope you had a fun time. Yes. So, in your writing groups, I want you to submit, in case this wasn't made clear, 1,000 words every week. That's not a very large chunk, okay? It's actually quite small, and in fact, your writing group is more than welcome to make some changes to this. This is what the class requires. Did Emily split you up by hardcoredness? How hardcore you are?
I was going to bring this up later, but I think
Yeah.
there's going to be a certain amount of shifting that will have to take place.
We can go ahead and shift around the writing groups.
Yeah, she had to split up between like those that wanted to audit or those that were like the 15.
Oh, the
and those that
15,
were
yeah,
like
she
the-
didn't know what was going to happen to that. We'll go ahead and rebuild the writing groups then, and that'll be okay. If there are those of you who are hardcore and you want to bump up to 2,000 words a week, I would not suggest more than 2,000 words for a 5-person writing group. That's 10,000 words of reading. That's fine. I mean, honestly, you can read 10,000 words. By the way, you have to start thinking of word counts instead of pages. That's like, over here on our little list of things to learn to look like a pro. P-R-O. Number 1 is you start referring to word count. I don't know what anything pages is anymore. Who cares what pages are? Pages, you can make, you've learned this, when someone says make a 10-page essay, that can be anything you want it to be, right? Word count is how the entire industry works, and it's no longer an estimate based on yada, yada, yada. It used to be an estimate, it's like this number of words. It's just the Microsoft Word, push the button. That's the word count. What Microsoft Word says your word count is. Start thinking in word count, start talking in word count. Don't talk in pages to editors. You can talk in pages to readers, but to editors or to other writers, talk in word count. So 10,000 words is a manageable amount. My writing group, we do 3 submissions of around 4,000 or 3,000. It's very manageable, even with going through reading in a detailed way and things like that. I wouldn't recommend much more than this. Another thing you could do in your writing group is you could alternate. You could say, these 3 are going to submit 2,000 words this week, and the next 2 are going to submit 2,000 words the next week. That's perfectly acceptable too, as long as you're getting the average. The trick is when I sit in on your class, your writing group, you kind of have to tweak things, and I'll warn you a week before, and so that you can each submit 1,000 words, so that I can, that week you'll have to go to the other style. So that can be kind of problematic. With the 2,000 word one, I'll try to read on. I can't promise that I will. I'll read at least 1,000 words. But if you're thinking you're fairly hardcore, do that. If you're thinking I'm already going to be overloaded by writing 30,000 words this semester and having 18 credit hours and double majoring in like economics and pre-med or something like that, then you can go ahead and just do the 1,000 words, and that's fine. Okay, this is just what the minimum class is. 2,000 words is a better chunk to sink your teeth into. You're going to submit that every week. What you're going to do in submitting that every week is you're going to post it to LiveJournal. I know, there's lots of you, there's like this Blackboard thing we could use, we could just use email. Email's terrible because people always have excuses the email doesn't work. I found that when I started making people post it to LiveJournal instead of emailing, all of this, my computer didn't work, excuses, all went away, magically, poof. People's computers magically started working better. When they had to post it, because LiveJournal will timestamp it and things like that. You're going to post that on Monday, okay? Is that what I say on there?
By midnight.
By midnight. I'm really okay if you do it like at 2 a.m. or things like that. What I want is it to be there to be read Tuesday morning so that people have time on their schedule to do the readings, okay? If you don't submit by then I've got to take away points because there's got to be some forcing mechanism to get you doing that early enough that the writer in your group who wants to be reading that when it works for them can do so, and so they don't have to like complain to me or complain to you. Get it up there. Don't make this an issue. You should all get full points on this thing, okay? Because if you're writing 3,000 words a week, you'll be done with all the submissions you're going to need to make to your writing group by the end of the first month, right? Okay? So really, do the 3,000 words a week. Get ahead, all right? Write hard for a couple of weeks, and then you'll never lose a single point by submission-wise, because you can always have them up there Monday night, early Tuesday morning, because you've already got it done, okay? All right, so you're going to be submitting that every week, yeah?
Just a recommendation, like blogs also work really good, like where you have co-authors all in the same blog, and then like you can do the comments or whatever you want.
Yes, they do work very well. Maybe someday I will shift to something like that. LiveJournal is blogging, and you can make comments and things like that. All right, so when you're giving feedback, I would suggest a few rules of thumb. The most important thing you can learn to do is to be descriptive rather than proscriptive. All right? What this means is that you are giving your response to the writing. You are not fixing their writing. It's a very important distinction. A good editor will learn how to tell you how to fix something. I don't trust any of you to do that yet. Perhaps you're good at it. Perhaps you will be able to. But if what you say is, I'm bored, and then you say, and you expand upon it. I was reading through here, and these big, long, thick paragraphs, I just wanting to move on with it, or it felt like it wasn't going anywhere, and or things like that. That's actually far more useful to the writer than saying, you should have ninjas attack, or something like that. You know, the you shoulds will actually risk veering their book off course towards something you want it to be rather than what they want it to be. This is particularly dangerous if you have discovery writers in your group, because the discovery writers will often say, "That's awesome, I'll have ninjas attack," and then suddenly they have this like totally schizophrenic book where everything's different every week. It's not as much danger for the outliners. They're like, no, ninjas attack in chapter 37. I've already got that one plotted out. So, if you can learn to give good descriptive feedback for where you're confused, where a character's not interesting to you, or what you liked, where you laughed, where you were confused, all of these things, what you are viewing yourselves as in this writing group when you're reading is you are the test audience. A lot of television shows and movies will use a test audience to judge the emotional reaction of their audiences. They don't get a whole bunch of filmmakers and stick them in there to have them say, well, you should have framed that shot differently. They get the people who would be watching the film or the television show, the target audience, and see what their response is, and then judge if they want that response. Sometimes as a writer, you want them to be frustrated with the character. That's okay, that's good. Anyone read The Wheel of Time? There's characters there you're supposed to be frustrated about, and it's for the good of the story. Sometimes that's what you guys want to have happen in your writing, and so when your writing group says, I'm so frustrated with him, why can't you just get over this? You go cackle and say, all right, when he gets over it, if you're doing it appropriately, they're going to have a good emotional response. If you do it poorly, maybe they'll just get annoyed and put the book down, but these are things you're practicing and learning. So that's why this whole descriptive thing is important. Number two, try and view in context of the book. All right? In some cases, you may not be the target audience for this book. We're going to try to split the writing groups up in a way that you are the part of the target audience, okay? But sometimes someone's working on a young adult book and you don't you don't read that very much, and you're like, I want, more depth of description here, things like that. Still, your emotional response, it's still good, but sometimes when you can kind of put it in the context and think, no, they're probably doing this right, it's what their book needs. Yes, it's mushy, but this is the sort of thing a mushy book wants. It's hard. This is really dangerous to do. It's really hard to do, but I do want you to kind of consider the context of the book when you're framing your comments, okay? We'll try to mitigate this as best we can by the ways we split our writing group. All right, if you're being critiqued, I would suggest strongly that you follow this one all-important rule. Say nothing. All right? This is an age-old requirement in writing groups that has passed the test of time. It's very good. It's very useful for you to stay out of it, to not defend yourself, to not explain what's going on. It's hard. They're like misunderstanding your book, and you want to tell them how awesome your book is so you can show them just how awesome your book is. It can be very difficult, but the problem is the more you interfere, the less valuable their feedback will be to you. The idea is you are the person with the clipboard at the back of the room as they are experiencing the story, and they are having a conversation together about it, and you are furiously writing down all these things, such as, yes, they liked this, it worked really well for me, for them, it's exactly what I want, evil laughter. Or you're writing down, wow, they're really confused by this. I didn't explain this very well at all. I'll try that in the next chapter and see if they get it that time. If you instead say, well, this is what it is, you don't get the chance to explain it in the next chapter and see if you can do it, and therefore you get better at telling people about your book, and you don't get better at writing your book. Okay? I have a really solid writing group. I have a writing group filled with pros and semi-pros. I take about 2 out of 5 comments and actually apply them to my book, okay? You can use this to gauge the feel, but don't completely start changing your story because of what people are saying. Use it to make little tweaks, and also set it aside for use when you're revising. When I'm going to do my revisions, I go back to what they said about the chapter, I reread the chapter, I reread their revisions, and once I've had that distance from it, which is really important for revision, I will say, wow, they were right. I need to change this, and this right here is a great, this will fix my story by fixing this and this and this. This is just my loony friend who always harps on this thing. Goodbye. Get used to that. Some quirks of writing groups. Writing groups are bad with pacing. Okay? Pacing. Writing groups are bad at judging pacing. This is because you're having a week between scenes. It's even going to be worse with you guys with 1,000 words. Okay? They can try and they'll say, this I think is feeling kind of slow to me, or this is feeling very abrupt to me. Go ahead and write it down. But in these cases, lots of pacing issues, you want to give the full book to somebody, or at least the full sequence to somebody to read and see what they feel, okay? Because it's really hard, even as an experienced writing grouper, to say on a piece that you're reading across the course of 5 months whether something's moving too fast or slow, okay? Keep that in mind. Another thing writing groups will get is they will pick up on certain things that they will harp on. I'm not even sure how to write this down. But for instance, if one writing group member says, wow, you use the color green all the time, from then on, every person in the writing group is going to notice every time you use something green. And it may not actually be an issue, but the next time you come to the writing group, they're like, I circled all the green parts! And everyone else is like, yeah, I did too! And you get this sort of mindset in your writing group that small things can become big issues to the writing group over time that are not actually big issues. Be aware that that happens. I don't know how to warn you about it other than to just say this happens, okay? But the good things about a writing group outweigh these sorts of things. I think the good things about a writing group will give you a test audience to try your fiction out on. You can try things out and see, if you're writing a humorous narrative, am I humorous? Am I able to write a character? What do they think about this character? All of these things can be wonderful. So, you guys got all this? This is how you're going to do your writing groups. Now we're going to go over the structure. All right. I used to give this as a suggestion, and then people ignored it because I told them they could ignore my suggestions. So now I just say we're going to do it. Okay. Number one, when you sit down, I would suggest that you have kind of somebody in charge. Pick an in charge. It can change or whatever, but the idea is this person is going to time the whole thing and make sure that you're moving at a good clip. We're going to have 5 or 6 people in these writing groups. You're going to have about an hour for your workshopping. That means that we really need you to be spending about 10 minutes per person. All right, 10 minutes per person means that you're going to have to keep it moving, okay? And the person in charge, what you can do is you can move them through the phases of this whole thing a little more quickly. You can, there's some of you are going to be A-type personalities. You'll love this, okay? You can just make everybody do what you say. But the idea is to keep it moving and to make sure if someone gets going on one issue that's going too long, say, well, we really need to move on. So find someone who's comfortable saying that and go ahead and do it. Writing groups should be fun. I don't want to make the writing group Nazi who's in charge of you all. But if there's somebody who's taken the class a few times, maybe put them in charge or something like that. Talk it among yourselves. You're big kids. You can figure it out. But put somebody in charge. Okay. Number 2, you're going to move through the phases of the writing group where you're going to begin with good things. This is what's working for you. The emotional responses you had, you've got to do this, okay? It's easy to focus on the criticism. You're taught in your English classes to focus on the criticism. The good things are going to be just as important to that writer to know what they're nailing and what they're hitting. Characters that you're enjoying. What narrative parts are making you laugh if it's supposed to be funny, or cry if it's not supposed to. Your emotional investment here and there, where you felt excited, all of these things. Important stuff to get down, okay? Phase 2, your leader, once that kind of conversation has died down, is going to move you on to big problems. These are larger than a sentence level thing. Don't tell them during the big problems phase that, you used the wrong there. Don't tell them that. Unless they do it every week and they don't know the difference between them, then it becomes a big problem. But don't say that. Don't say, oh, you forgot a period here. Ignore that. If it drives you crazy, which it does some people to not be giving people that, print off the document, read it and mark it up, give it to them at the end of the writing group session, okay? All right? And then they get their feedback. Some writing groups really like to do that with everybody. Mark up a copy and hand it back to them. It can be really helpful for all these sentence level things that we won't get time to. Your big problems are, what I talked about earlier, where you are bored. It's not like stuff that's like, oh, I would put this book down and throw it out the window. But it's the things, where they're the counterpart to the good things, all right? Talk about that for a little while. And then at the end, you can go ahead and have the leader let them ask questions. Don't do this the first couple of times. Then go ahead and move into this and say, okay, do you have any questions? To the person who's been quiet the whole time. And the person can say, he felt this about this character. Could you guys talk more on that and see? Because, if they have a discussion about it, then good. And you get more feedback, all right? So these are 3 phases. One person's in charge of kind of moving you through them and keeping you going at a good clip. If your whole writing group decides you want to spend more time and do things longer and have more submissions, that's okay. But I'm going to suggest we only do that if you're in one of the hardcore writing groups, which we'll do in the splitting up of in a few minutes here, so that someone doesn't feel embarrassed by being the only one in the writing group who really just only wants to do 1,000 words and really does want to get out of here in a reasonable hour, okay? All right, so don't, I'll give you guys, the people who want to have 4-hour writing groups, okay, you're not going to have 4-hour writing groups, but who want to be able to go along and do 2,000 words and things like that, I'll give you guys the chance to be in a writing group that facilitates that. Otherwise, let's try and keep it on task and at a good pace. People have places to be, and plus, the longer you talk, the more you're going to stray into the prescriptive changes, or the you don't know how to use the progressive tense in this sentence or something like that. I don't know, whatever. Progressive tense, soup. So, does this make sense to everybody? All right. Now, you may think that I'm harping on this a little bit much, but like I said, a bad writing group can actually be worse for your writing than helpful. It can destroy, particularly the discovery writers can get completely cast off course by a bad writing group. And I want you to have a good experience with the writing group. At the end of this course, you may decide writing groups just aren't for you. That's fine. You don't ever have to do one again unless you for some reason take the class again, like some of you insane people have done 3 years in a row. But yeah.
So are we going to be making comments on LiveJournal, or are we just using that to read and then?
You are welcome to if you want, but I want the face-to-face.
Okay.
I find that online writing groups for me are not as effective, and I want you to practice face-to-face. And that brings up another good thing. I would rather your writing groups be a discussion, okay? A lot of writing groups, particularly with newer writers in courses at BYU, it will be like, all right, who has something to say? And like go down the line and each person says something. I would rather you not do that. I would rather you have the leader say, all right, who has a good thing? Someone says a good thing, and then you discuss it and say, yeah, I really like that, and I like this part too because it tied into that. Rather than, okay, what are your good things? Okay, what are your good things? I'd like you to have a conversation about it. That does put a more onus on the person in charge because one of your jobs will be making sure that everyone has a chance to speak. If there's somebody like me in the writing group who just likes to blab, you're going to have to be like, all right, we haven't heard from Sarah in a while. Sarah, did you have anything you wanted to say regarding this and that sort of thing? So that does put an onus upon you to do that. Everyone be aware of it. If you're naturally a blabber like me, then be aware that you need to make room for everyone else to give things to say. Same goes for the big problems, though. I would rather have it be a discussion. Have someone bring something up, and if you don't agree, say, you know what, I didn't feel that. Have a discussion about it. It's okay. Readers, it's going to be more helpful to the writer to listen to what the readers are saying in a discussion form as you talk about the piece, as opposed to going through lists of things about the piece, okay? That's kind of a hard dynamic to enforce upon you because it really means you guys have to get comfortable with each other, and you'll do this more and more as the semester progresses. Sorry about that. So, yeah. Any other questions about the writing groups? Yes?
You mentioned bringing in people outside the class.
Yes.
Now, we can't bring them here, obviously, with us, but what do you find is the best way to do that? Is to email it to people, or?
Yeah, or, I mean, I have frequently had people bring their spouses to the writing group portion of the class. You're free to do that if you want. In fact, the writing groups tend to get, as the class progresses, not all of them get this way, but people start bringing treats. People start ordering pizza or whatever and having their writing group and things like that. That's fine too. Bringing in your spouse, if the whole writing group's okay with having another person. The problem is your writing groups are going to be so tight at the 10-minute mark that more people is probably not necessarily going to be more helpful to you because, you know, we give about 45 minutes per piece or a half hour in my writing group. Plenty of time to talk for everybody. But at 10 minutes, so, you know, be careful about that. We don't want these writing groups to get to be like 20 people with like your roommate's friend coming along and things like that. In my writing group, we email submissions to everybody, to each other on Monday, and then we read them all and we meet together and chat about them. So, all right? All right. So, I want you to start a new story for this. This class is focused on long form. We will go ahead and have some lectures on short stories, preferably by Eric, but we are focused on long form. The ideal thing for you to do would probably be to try to write a 30,000 word novella. Novellas work like a novel. They have exercise a lot of the same muscles, but then you can actually finish something. I released a 30,000 word novella last year, Emperor's Soul. That's about the length that you are shooting for in this class. You can instead start a new novel and just plan that you would keep going after the class. That's pretty cool too because it will force you to keep writing, hopefully, theoretically, perhaps. But I do want you to start something new rather than something you've been working on. One of the reasons for this is a lot of writers who want to become pros get stuck in a rut of working on the same concept over and over and over again. I don't want to let you keep doing that. I don't want to let you keep working on that story that you've workshopped in 3 different writing classes so far. It's not about, you know, me arbitrarily wanting you to do new work for this class. It's about me wanting you to break out of that. And there are probably some of you who are like that in this class. There always are a few who've been working on this project that is like this dream project that you've had going for years and years and years. And no, let's put it aside. A couple of reasons for that. I want you to be experimenting in this class with the things I talk about, like discovery writing versus architect writing. And I don't want you to be too emotionally tied to the story that you're working from. If you work on something new, you will begin to, you will, I think, be more free to do this. It'll also teach you, again, that writers write. Writers don't have one story that they're going to tell most of the time. They have a skill in writing, and they can tell a lot of different stories. Ideas are cheap, all right? Ideas are cheap. You may have an idea that you think is just awesome, and perhaps it is, but a good writer can take terrible ideas and write a fantastic story, and a bad writer will take the best ideas in the world and go nowhere with it. Great example of this, Jim Butcher, very nice fellow. He writes some urban fantasy books, which are quite well written, and some epic fantasies, which I actually like even more. Jim Butcher was on a forum arguing with someone about this topic. Jim Butcher is a writer. The person with whom he was arguing, I assume, was not. They may be a pretend writer, but they were not really a writer, because this person was saying, no, the ones who make it are the ones who have the great ideas. Those are the people who make it, and that's what people are going for. And Jim argued, no, the people who make it are the people who have the skill as a writer they've trained themselves in. They got in this big argument. At the end of it, Jim said, all right, you give me your worst ideas, and I'm going to write a book about them, and it's going to be awesome. And so the person said, okay, I want you to write a book combining the Lost Roman Legion and Pokemon. This is true. I got Jim to confirm it to me. Lost Roman Legion in Pokemon. He wrote his epic fantasy series that called Codex Alera, which is about the Lost Roman Legion using these elemental-based pet things that they bond with and stuff, and it's pretty awesome. All right? And it is, what's that? 6 books, bestsellers. And I've read them, and they're good. So, Lost Roman Legion meets Pokemon was that. All right? Ideas are cheap. The more you train yourself to write, the more ideas you will have, and soon you will have more ideas than you can write. I'm going to prove to you that ideas are cheap several points during this class, during which we'll brainstorm ideas. I don't know if we have time to do that today, because I probably want to get into the world building, but we'll see. But we will brainstorm. We will come up with great ideas for stories. We will have on that day, you walk out with an idea for 6 different books. All right? In fact, I want to do that. Let's do that. We're going to come up with ideas for 6 different books that are going to be cool. You can see anytime you go to like writing conferences, people will do things like this. Orson Scott Card has a thing, what's he called, 100 ideas in an hour? 1,000 ideas in an hour, where you are brainstorming and things like this. Now, we will get into some world building, but I may save the world building until after I've got you jump started on your writing. All right? What I want you to do is if you've got an idea you've been wanting to write on, that's okay. You can go with that. But a really good story, in my opinion, on long form, this doesn't apply as well to short form, is going to mix 3 things. It's going to mix a good setting idea. All right? Setting is why you're in this class rather than in another class, creative writing class. We, science fiction and fantasy, have much more of a focus on setting than other genres do. The idea for us is that the setting is a living, breathing character. And I include a lot of different things in this idea for setting. It's all of the sort of science fiction and fantasy stuff. I don't start a book until I've got a couple of good ideas for a setting. All right? You combine that with a character. I usually want to start with a good idea for a character. An idea for a character is really a character conflict. All right? A good character conflict. Then you mix that with a plot idea. Plot is generally the place where you're going to take, where it's going to be the least original. People talk about there only being a certain number of plots, and to an extent it's true. I don't want to, again, downplay the art of all of this and whatnot, but there are certain forms you use to tell a story, certain plot arcs that have been very successful, and most stories are going to fall into these. The underdog success story, or the journey, the quest, the mystery, these sorts of things are kind of plot ideas. But you can't have an interesting idea for your twist on an interesting plot, okay? And so I usually start when I have a few of each of these, and they begin combining in interesting ways, and that makes me want to write a story. So we're going to try brainstorming this today, and we're going to do this differently than I did it last year, and we'll maybe do this the way I did it last year during the character thing. But why don't we go ahead and brainstorm a couple of rich, interesting setting concepts, places you haven't seen a story take place, a magic system based on something interesting, or a world element that you haven't seen, something that just pops into your head. What would be cool? Just throw them out at me.
Stone Age Africa.
Okay, Stone Age Africa. Good setting. I'm actually going to try and write these so you can read them because we'll need them later.
Magic system based on people's innate talents.
Innate talents. Okay, talent-based. Okay. What else? You know what? Let's just do places right now. We'll do magic in a second. Do places.
Floating islands.
Floating islands. Okay. What else?
A plane of existence, but it's like not existence because nothing exists but people.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Very nihilist. Yes. All right. What else do we got? Interesting places. It doesn't have to be things like this. What's a room or a profession that someone could have that has an interesting setting attached to it? Okay, a dentist office. Okay, I like that. Okay, cathedral. What's different about this cathedral? No, this is good. See? You're laughing, but this is good. Space cathedral, huh? Okay, space cathedral. The other side of a mirror, okay. Okay, over here. Abandoned spaceship, okay. Okay. Okay.
Ocean under an ice cap.
Ooh, ocean under ice cap. I like that. Okay.
A dystopic afterlife posing as heaven.
Oh, that's good. All right. Okay.
A universe, like just a different universe.
Different universe where the laws of physics are different. What law of physics is different there?
Like light rays.
Okay, light moves at a different speed. All right, all right. Slow light universe. It's a very interesting story called Slow Glass, by the way, where someone made a glass that when light hit it, it traveled slowly through the glass. And so you could take it out, have it get a picture, move it somewhere, and then it would show on the other side the light would eventually get through. Very interesting. All right, so let's stick with these for a second. And now let's go ahead and ask for a few more interesting technologies or magics or things like that.
Portable black hole.
Okay, portable black hole. Asimov had those. Eye color magic. Okay.
Portable zipper that can unzip stuff.
Unzip anything. Ooh. I like that idea. All right, right over here.
Magic based on ambient temperature.
Ambient temperature. Describe that more.
I have no idea.
Okay, ambient temperature.
You can only do certain things if the temperature is a certain temperature.
Okay. All right. All right. So, yes.
Street corner that goes back in time.
Ooh, street corner that goes back in time.
Like time control.
Time control? Okay. Time manipulation. Let's do one more. Okay, someone hasn't said one.
Pods that aliens send out into space that like create civilizations.
Okay, okay.
But not the people, just like buildings and stuff. Yeah.
Like terraforming Mars?
He can only write so much.
Okay, we're just going to go pods. All right, all right. So we've got some cool things over here. Now, let's go ahead and try some plot hooks. All right, what's an interesting, let's go ask for favorite movies. Someone raise their hand, tell me your favorite movie, okay? All right, let's go. Someone who hasn't talked before, you may have, but no, The Hobbit's your favorite movie. Okay, let's break down The Hobbit. What's the plot of The Hobbit? Journey. Plot. The Hobbit is a journey to a place. What can we do? What would be an interesting plot that turns that on its head? A journey to some place you wouldn't expect someone to be taking a journey toward.
Journey inside a cat.
No. A journey to the afterlife? Okay, journey to the afterlife. Okay, so this is going to be our plot concept, one of our plot concepts. The idea would be that you would be laying this on top of a plot archetype like The Hobbit, except instead you're journeying to or through the afterlife of some sort. Okay, what's another favorite movie? Gattaca. Okay, Gattaca is a tough one to break down. What would you say the core plot of Gattaca is if you're breaking it down?
It's really a story about two brothers trying to prove to themselves who's better.
Okay, excellent. That's a good way to break it down. There are different ways you can do that, but that's good. Okay, so you've got two brothers trying to prove to each other who's better. The underdog brother and the overachieving brother. All right? How can we turn that two-sibling relationship into something interesting for ourselves? We'll do both of yours.
It's only one sibling. He's
Okay.
schizophrenic.
Okay, schizophrenic sibling. That we could go with. I'm worried that there's a lot of schizophrenic stories out there these days, but competing against an imaginary brother is a pretty cool thing.
I think it'd be funny if the little brother, the underdog, ended up getting everything the older brother wanted, and he had to go out and go on a journey himself, even though he's not the typical.
Okay, the older brother had everything, and was this like a man in the iron mask sort of thing? The younger brother, how'd he take it from him?
Let's just say that by a twist of fate, everything the older brother worked on ended up going to the younger brother because he went blind.
Okay, let's do that. We can go this. Okay, older brother. This could be sister too, older sibling. Suddenly loses everything. That's a decent plot hook. I think you could go places with that.
Yeah, so like one of the siblings is a ghost, so like he interacts with the sibling, they can see each other or whatever, but then like there's the problems of obviously dealing with the fact that nobody else can see him.
Okay. So there's a plot there too. The idea that older brother has everything, everything's going well, then he dies, and he has to help his younger brother, with whom he's estranged from, achieve everything that he wanted to achieve. Okay? Ghost Bros. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to another plot archetype here. What's a favorite movie? Favorite movie in the corner? Count of Monte Cristo. Pretty easy. What is it? Revenge. Ooh, revenge has been done a lot. Can we do some new kind of revenge? Can we say vengeance against someone unexpected or vengeance for something unexpected? All right? We'll get all three of you.
Older brothers also gained revenge against his old secretary.
Okay.
Instead of his brother, which would be kind of...
Against the secretary. Okay, revenge against secretary.
Sentient zombies seeking revenge against the person who unleashed the plague.
Okay. Well, we can write that down. Zombie revenge. Okay, zombie revenge.
Person seeking revenge against the protagonist.
Okay, anti-hero story then, sort of thing.
No, the protagonist was set up for something, or maybe he doesn't even know why this person's going after him. But
Okay.
it's revenge that's motivating the other person. The first person is the one being hunted.
Okay, that actually is going to change. We can put that up, but that's actually more like that's a different plot. That's a hunted plot. That's the fugitive, and that's a different plot archetype. We could do that one next, but let's deal with this revenge thing. Let's try and dig deeper. Okay, let's try and do a different type of revenge story. Yeah.
Revenge against your past self.
Wow. Okay, revenge. Okay, I totally wrote that wrong. Past self. All right. Okay, I'm liking this. Okay, what did you have?
What if the world has ended, all people have died, and there's one person on the planet who's still trying to save the world, like trying to get revenge for the world ending?
Okay. So it's kind of like someone blew up the planet, and this person is going to go get revenge for the whole human race. I like that. Okay. Leia's vengeance. Okay, we're just going to call it that, but that's what that one is, okay? This is last human in the universe gets revenge on entire people who blew up our planet. I like that. Okay, well, this is our last one.
Revenge against the deities of the world.
Okay, revenge against deities. What's different about these deities?
The only deities is day jobs.
For everything wrong in his life, but they weren't the cause of his problems.
Okay, no, I want to know what's different about the deities, though. What are they? What kinds of gods are they? What are they?
They're only gods during their day job.
Okay, gods during their day jobs. I kind of like that.
Well, you can have like a mutable pantheon of gods. So, if you depose the god, then you take his place.
Okay, I like these. I've seen both of those things a little bit before. Let's try and push a little harder. What kind of different? Do we have anything else? We can put that up if we don't.
Okay, that one's I've seen a lot before, so we'll go ahead and step away from that one. But it is a good idea. So, okay, revenge against deities. I'm going to go with the day job one, unless we got over here.
Revenge against the weird thing about the deities is that they don't need followers. They have to follow somebody else to gain power.
Okay, that one's weird to wrap my mind around. My head around. You're going to keep that one. You can use it later. But I'm just going to go. I'm going to do the deities that were day job, meaning they're regular folks who took a stint as deities. It doesn't mean day job, but it means they spent the time as deities, and now that someone else has taken that, this deity, now you're going to hunt them down, and they have residual abilities or something like that. Okay, so you see we've got all of these things here. We've got some pretty cool things up here. We're going to now go, and we're going to do the last one. And I'll try and do this one a little bit better when we have more time for characters. But let's do a few characters, okay? So let's do, give me an age and a gender. Just someone go ahead.
45.
45-year-old what? Woman, okay. And?
21-year-old male.
One male, okay.
5-year-old girl.
5 girl, okay.
80-year-old man.
80-year-old man.
Talking dog.
Okay, 1,000 man, and we're going to do dog. Okay, we'll just try it out. Okay, we're going to, all right. Now, our 45-year-old woman, tell me her job that's an unusual job for her.
Mortician.
Okay, our 45-year-old mortician. Okay, what else? Unusual job for the 21-year-old male. He's a novelist, okay. Okay, our 5-year-old girl, not really profession, but their family's profession.
I was going to say shaman.
Oh, 5-year-old shaman, I like that. That works, that works. Okay, the 80-year-old man, unusual job for the 80-year-old man. Singer of celebrity of some sort. It doesn't have to be pop singer, but yes. Okay, 1,000-year-old man. Vampire. Okay, there's a lot of vamps out there. What's his job?
He pairs up with the mortician.
He hangs with the mortician. He's a dentist. Maybe, and they're paired. This is a group. Okay, the dog.
Animal rights activist.
Bartender. I love that. Bartender. Okay, dog's the bartender. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to try and construct some stories out of these things, okay, very quickly, because we don't have a lot of time. And what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and connect one thing from each group into a story that's interesting. We're going to try and stay away from silly unless you're doing middle grade. Middle grade likes silly, and so we can stray a little more silly that way. But what's that? Or Robert Aspirin. I mean, you can do silly, but it's got to be humorous silly. It can't be just ridiculous for ridiculous as snake. I guess aspirin was ridiculous for that. Anyway, all right. So what are we going to do here? I'm going to say that I really like. We're going to just start with the. Let's start with a fantasy one. Let's start with the dentist's office. All right. What can we connect this from any of these? It doesn't have to be that can make the dentist's office more interesting.
I think the object can unzip anything and the dentist can use it, but people won't open their mouth.
Okay. That's fun. What else do we got? Over here, Abraham? Only open at night? Okay. Dentist only open at night? I think we're pushing toward the vampire. What other ideas do we have here?
Somebody inherits their brother's dentist office, and people can use it to go back in time before they had a cavity and leave the portal.
Okay. That's interesting. That would be an interesting short story. I'm not sure if there's a novel there, but that is a short story concept, and I like that one. So we can go ahead and write that one down. Dentist office, portal, things like that. I just want to explore where else we go.
When people are unconscious in the dentist chair, they see the future.
Okay. That's our time manipulation thing. Okay. How does that relate to the dentist, though? I mean, you could just...
They get gas.
Yeah, that's the gas. That's not the dentist's office. Why is the dentist's office important?
Maybe it's a dentist, but they're at a time period when we don't necessarily have our standard dentist chair or something.
Okay. Yeah, see, I'm more interested in something like that. I'm more interested in Stone Age African dentist. Okay? Why am I most interested in that one? It's because that seems, number one, it takes us to a new time and place. Remember, I'm not looking for ridiculous connections. And a lot of these sounded a little bit ridiculous or quirky. What I'm looking for in this is something that has innate conflict and takes us to an interesting time and place that we can tell a whole story about. And so for me, I would immediately do this. What do you do with the Stone Age Africa and the dentist?
Well, I think the dentist office inside a pocket dimension that somehow people can cross over into.
Okay. Let's stay for things up here. We're going to stay. We don't want to add new stuff to this right now. We're going to stay. What else do we connect? I'm going to give you Stone Age dentist in Africa. What else do we connect? It does fit pretty well with the 5-year-old shaman, doesn't it? I'm going to go ahead and connect that one over here. So the 5-year-old shaman is connected to the dentist. I'm going to guess she's not the dentist, that she's the apprentice to the dentist, okay? Right? Who is the shaman, but also the healer. Tell me more.
Well, maybe we can make it so that to use the time travel, have the dentist be stuck in Stone Age Africa, and the only thing he knows how to do is fix teeth. So that
Whoa, hey, I like that. I like that. Okay, so we've got the time travel here. So we have a dentist, and all he can do, right? And he's training this 5-year-old shaman, but he's really teaching her science, modern science. Okay, that's cool. This is working. What else?
Let's see, like maybe there's a belief system like teeth are sacred and the mouth is sacred.
Okay, I like that. That works. Sacred mouth. Okay. Okay, we've got a situation. We do not have a plot archetype. Okay, so we're going to do all 4 of you guys, so 5 of you guys. Okay, we're going to hear them all, and then we'll figure out. So let's go right here.
So a neighboring tribe comes and wipes out everyone except for the 5-year-old shaman who uses the technological knowledge that she has from the time traveler to go and revenge herself of her tribe.
Okay, so we could totally do the revenge plot. Revenge for her tribe. Okay.
The dentist is dying, and the 5-year-old girl shaman knows about the afterlife, and in return teaches the dentist about the afterlife.
Okay. I'm kind of bored by that plot. Okay. There's got to be something happening. Sitting and teaching isn't something happening. Can you make something happen? He dies, and she becomes his spirit guide.
Okay, yes.
See? Do you see the difference there between she teaches him and she leads him? Look for activity. Okay, I'm trying to, we'll get into these things, nitty-gritties, but I kind of like this as an object lesson for. So I like that one. You can do the journey to the afterlife with her. So you could do the revenge one. That's not the deities, but you know what I'm saying. You could do the journey to Africa in this plot archetype. Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Both of you. We'll do Jane first, because I know her name.
Believe that having the holes in your head would let in spirits.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it's actually true, and you get the ghost brother.
Okay. There is a danger in here. So, but
Science, but it actually
what is the plot? What happens? Ghost brother gets into who or whom?
obviously somebody important.
Okay.
Possessed by a spirit because the dentist pulled some teeth.
Okay, and what does that lead to? What conflict does that lead to? What's the problem? Okay, he is trying to destroy the dentist. Okay, see, pushing for conflict and story. We want to transition from situation to story. Good.
So we were on the same brainwave because my
Uh-huh.
was similar. But what if the dentist has an evil brother who came back in time with him, and to foil his brother's plot because he's angry that his younger brother, who was just a dentist, got
Yeah.
everything and he lost nothing, he is now going to start a new religion with another tribe teaching that pulling out your teeth causes you to be possessed by evil spirits.
Okay, excellent. Even better if it's true. Okay. So we've got things going on that's still a bit of a situation rather than a plot, but I like where that's going. If you were discovery writing, that would be plenty for you to start with and then go and see where it goes. But you would need a big problem for that story. Something probably bigger than both tribes, but it's a place we could go. Okay.
Mine involved journey to the afterlife.
Uh-huh.
That the 5-year-old shaman suggests that if the dentist were to go to the
Okay.
And
Ah.
someone stopped trying to keep the dentist from going back in time.
Okay, who's trying to stop him?
Maybe the
Past self?
past self or
His
brother.
past self or his brother? Either one of those could work.
Yeah.
His brother banished him here, or he had a change of heart. I like this past self thing because I think you could do something with that. Maybe we'll do that next. All right, let's do this and then we'll go there and then we'll move on to them. Okay.
I was thinking that she's a shaman. She's supposed to be protecting her village
Mhm.
bad influences, and the only dentist we have up there is a vampire.
Yep.
So he's helping them by giving them longer and healthier lives through helping their teeth.
So you're going to make the dentist into the vampire, which is totally possible with this.
And he's a vampire, and so she has to have this conflict of do
Right.
I kill this vampire or do I
Yeah.
learn what he
Right. I've got this monster who can teach me things. In that case, I would up her age probably to 8 or 9 at the youngest. And that's going to be something you'd have to decide whether the 5-year-old girl is the main character or not. As the spirit guide for the Journey to the Afterlife, 5 is fine. I've got a 5-year-old son. That would be really frustrating if that were my, like there's things that a 5-year-old, and frustrating means good, right? Conflict is good. But 5-year-old as a protagonist is going to be really hard to write. Upping the age to like a 12-year-old versus the vampire, suddenly you've got this interesting sort of middle grade story or maybe YA story that you could do with them as a protagonist. All right.
I really want to like see a zombie revenge story, like so a horde of sentient zombies like trying to destroy the village, like their
Okay.
plan, and like he
Yeah.
has this modern science and this 5-year-old girl to save.
Yeah. Yeah, you could totally work something like that. Like it's not actually Africa Stone Age, it's Africa Stone Age in the future because it's dystopian. We've collapsed and somebody has managed to get there with real information or whatnot. You could totally do that. All right, there was one more hand over here, and then we'll move on to another one.
I forgot what
Okay, all right. So you kind of see what I'm doing here. This is off the cuff, right? Most of the times when I'm doing this, I've spent months coming up with the different things on the board, and I'm combining them in interesting ways. This is one way to create a story. If you walked in here and you heard me say, I don't know what to write, he's making me not write something, you can pick something like this. You can do this with your friends. If you're really, like one of these stories we were talking about, you just love, you can go ahead and write that. Doesn't matter if multiple people write it. It's okay. This is for the class here. If you want to jump on it and say, I'm going to go with that story and see where it takes me, you go right ahead. We're going to do one more of these, and then we'll talk about a few other things. So let's go ahead. I really like the revenge against past self concept. Let's try and expand that by combining it with something interesting else on the board. Is there something interesting on the board that we haven't done yet that the past self one could do? And all right, we'll go here, there, and then there.
So the guy who's trying to get revenge on his past self is the last man alive, and the reason the world was destroyed was him.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That works really well.
I was thinking dystopic afterlife posing as heaven. The future self is trying to keep past self from getting there, so they're in conflict.
Okay, awesome.
Maybe the 80-year-old singer's trying to get back to his past self or try to get him to start singing sooner in life?
Okay, could be something like that. The immediate thing that popped into my mind was you have the past self went through some sort of redemption, right? You have an evil dude goes through redemption, sees in the future and sees what happens to him and doesn't want that to happen to him or something like that. And so you've got this conflict between future self and past self where one is trying to, something like that could be really interesting.
It's kind of like the new Star Trek, except for old Spock is evil, so the new Spock has to kill
Old Spock. Yeah, something like that. So let's take one of these and add more to it, just to keep doing this. Let's go ahead and let's stick let's stick one of these characters over here and here. Are we fine with the 80-year-old man, the 80-year-old singer? We're going to do this. 80-year-old bard is our main character. Doesn't have to be pop singer, can be pop singer. We did the last one, turned out to be science fiction-y. Let's do this one more fantasy. So let's add a magic to this, not a science. Which of these magics are we going to add over here? The eye color magic. Okay, what does the eye color magic do? Somebody who hasn't raised their hand yet. Have you said one yet? No, go for it.
You can do different elemental powers depending on what color your eyes are.
Okay, excellent. Elemental colors. What?
Not only that, but his eye color has changed over time.
Eye colors changed. Okay, his eye colors, or he's heterochromatic or something like that. Cool. 2 different eye colors or something. Okay, so his eye color's changing. You can do magic based on your eye color. Elemental control. Let's give him something that has to do with singing. So his eye color lets him do something magically with his.
However long he wants, his air.
Okay. Wow, that's pretty good. Very well done. Okay, he can hold his breath as long as he wants.
The reason he's so popular is because he creates his own pyrotechnics while he's singing.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, we're going to go with heterochromatic. He's got both of those, right? No, that's actually pretty cool. If you imagine someone who was able to do pyrotechnics, if we hadn't done it already, you could already also have the person that travels back in time, and it's like, he's a rock star from the future who gets trapped in a fantasy world. That's actually been done a little bit, Spell Singer. You can go look that up, but it's fun. But anyway, okay, is there anything else we can add to that to make it even more interesting? Something we've done up here. Can we add one of the other characters in as a foil?
The dog.
Right over here.
You have the 1,000-year-old vampire who collects people's eyes.
Okay, that could be cool. Very well done. Okay, what else? Someone who hasn't talked yet, spoken yet. Come on, quiet people. I'm going to make you do something. Pick one of these up here. Try and combine them in an interesting way. You've already talked.
I have, but I haven't.
Okay, go for it.
So you have the 45-year-old mortician,
Uh-huh.
and her, as part of her job, she takes people's eyes and she wants his.
Okay, the mortician wanting his eyes makes a little more sense than the vampire, I think. I like that. All right.
Like, for example, the mortician then could be, have like some kind of a black market where she's
Selling and swapping outing people's. Oh, wow. There you go. Okay. All right, we're gonna stop this for now. We could keep going on this. This is not necessarily how I come up with books, but it is kind of what you can do in 30 minutes version of how I come up with books. It is one way to come up with stories. These sorts of things are particularly good for discovery writers. Doing a brainstorming session like this, going and looking for writing prompts online and combining 3 of them in an interesting way. What you're looking for in that methodology is combining things in an interesting way that creates conflict. All right? So story is about conflict. If you don't have things going wrong, you don't have a story. You also want to try and create a story where your protagonist can have an active role rather than a completely reactive role. This is tough. If you look at any superhero movie, you'll see how tough it is to make the protagonist active and not just reacting to what the villains are doing. So as you design your plot and your story, that's what I want you to kind of be focusing on. I want you to be focusing on an interesting conflict for a character. Have your character have passions other than the story. It's the plot. Have them have a life other than whatever's going to hit them like a freight train, okay? Make them interesting in their own right, regardless of which style of writing you're using. And then try to think about how am I going to make them active rather than reactive. We are about out of time. I think I want to save a big world-building lesson for next time, even though the dude wanted one. Who's the dude that wanted one? Yeah, we'll do a big world-building one next time. I really want to get you jump-started on your story before we talk too much about world-building. You need to be jump-starting and thinking about things like this, conflict and that sort of thing. So brainstorming first, I think, was the better idea. Let's do questions for just a minute or two.
My question is, should we, or are you assuming that every one of us already has a story that we're married to for this semester?
No.
Or are we still working through that process?
You're still working through that process. I want you to have one by next week. In other words, I want your first 1,000 words submitted for next week. It can be really rough. Remember, we're not going to grade these qualitatively. But I want you to come up with something by Monday, 1,000 words that you've written, okay? And this is going to be some sort of new story. In fact, I want you to not be married to anything for this class. You can write 3,000 words on it, then abandon it and start again. I would really rather you not do that more than once, but you can do that, okay? And I want you to be thinking about something like this. Perhaps you have an idea already you haven't written on. It has to be something you haven't written on, and you want to go for it. That's okay too, but ask yourself some of these questions. Can I make my protagonist a little more dynamic? What is my plot archetype for this story? And how can I make it less of a situation and more of a story? And what type of plot archetype is this? And well, how am I going to put my own twist on it? How's it not going to be just another revenge story? How's it going to be my revenge story? How's it going to be interesting? We'll talk more about how to do that as the course progresses, but I wanted to give you something to kick you off.